We've got Gregory Wrightstone, who's a geologist and executive director of the CO2 Coalition in Arlington, Virginia. He's written a best-selling book called A Very Convenient Warming, How Modest Warming and More CO2 Are Benefiting Humanity. Welcome to the show, Gregory.
Yeah, great to be on with you, Pelle. And yeah, again, I just returned from 8 days in the Netherlands. They published my new book in Dutch. And so we did a tour there, and it was the timing of my arrival was fortuitous. Just 2 weeks, a week and a half before that, they had their elections there in the Netherlands, and the top vote getter was Geert Wilders, and he's very much anti-green, and he's putting a coalition together now that will be hopefully tossing out these green policies. In the Netherlands, there were a lot of these Western countries, including the UK, down where you are in Australia, where across Europe, they were proposing some crazy schemes, but the Netherlands and the Dutch took they were taking the lead. They were going to cull a huge percentage of the livestock and cattle in the Netherlands. Why? Climate change. They were going to take over. The proposal was to take over a significant percentage of the farms in the Netherlands. And bear in mind, the Netherlands are the second greatest agricultural production powerhouse in the world behind the United States. So this was a significant part of their economy, and they were trying to intentionally kill it. And the farmers rose up with tractor protests, did it for a couple of weeks, and the people rose up in revolt, and they said, no, we're not going to. What we're doing with these regulations and what they're proposing are systematically removing the freedoms, not just from the Dutch, but the UK, throughout the Western world. And all the while, India and China, their people prosper and thrive because they know that we need economic, abundant, and affordable energy. And you get that from coal, you get it from natural gas, and you get it from oil. It certainly isn't wind or solar. So they understand maybe in the UK, they need to wake up a little bit more, but
it sounds like it. Yeah, I mean, I'm based in Europe, so although we're Australian, my remit is Europe. And it's interesting that Holland, Netherlands, which is very politically correct, very right on, the country of bicyclists and windmills and everything. And I guess you saw a lot of wind power turbines compete there with the old-fashioned windmills. And now they're turning. And I've got some Dutch friends who are really angry about those really draconian impositions on farmers, and these farmers gained a lot of sympathy, and they went down to Brussels, which is in neighboring Belgium, and Brussels is the capital of the European Union, and chucked manure at the bureaucrats' grey office buildings, and they got some impact. And they used to say Holland's got a new government that is rolling back those things. So you're optimistic. What was the feedback then on your book? I mean, did you get anyone protesting?
No. My book is, and it's funny, I don't get a lot of. I'm a scientist. I don't go political. I don't go rogue. I'm not an activist. I just present. And my group, the CO2 Coalition, we talk about what the science is. And it's hard to dispute what we're saying because we have the science, the facts, and the data to back us up. But we need to be silenced. They need to silence me and my colleagues at the CO2 Coalition because we tell a compelling fact-based and science-based story of, actually my new book deals with the huge benefits that are accruing to Earth's ecosystems and by extension to humanity and the human condition. We're seeing that modest warming and more CO2 are actually benefiting the ecosystems greatly. By almost every metric we look at, things are getting better. Human conditions improving. Deserts are shrinking, not expanding. We're not experiencing deforestation. We're experiencing reforestation. Our air, at least in the United States and many of the Western countries, our air and water are cleaner today than they have probably been since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We should celebrate that. We all love clean air and clean water.
So just to throw in a little, you're saying that forests are increasing. Okay, and I know that CO2 increases forest growth, but how can you put it down to the CO2 rather than just reforestation plans?
Well, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's all because of CO2. It's mainly just different practices. Right. But the vegetation in the forests are increasing. We know that CO2-driven fertilization effect is impacting every ecological niche from the near polar regions to the equator. Many of the forested areas are just reforesting. For example, in my home state of Pennsylvania, we saw a 5-fold increase in standing timber in just one state, five times as much as what there was in 1953. And we're seeing that throughout the world. A lot of the deforestation that you see, what's causing it? Renewables. Cut down old growth forests, cut down mature forests, put up solar panels, chop them up and put them into pellets to be shipped to the Trax clean bio facility in the UK. No, thank you. They're destroying I guess we have to destroy the environment in order to save the environment. And it's just
it's like what they said about Vietnamese villages. Destroy a Vietnamese village to save it.
Yeah. We've got a board member, this Patrick Moore. He was a co-founder of Greenpeace. He was a true environmentalist. Greenpeace lost its way years ago, and he's left, and he sits on our board and believes, as I do, that the Earth is thriving and prospering. And
he's just written a book, hasn't he? And as I said, I mean, coming from Greenpeace, he's a convert away from the Greenpeace cause. I mean, they've done a lot of good stuff, I guess, on other issues like saving whales and so on. But on this one, they got it wrong,
Actually, he left. He left when they went on a war. He left whenever they went to war against chlorine for chlorinated water. Well, chlorinated water has probably saved more lives across the world by giving us clean, healthy water. It saved millions of lives. And he said, "No, I'm not going to be part of this movement."
Wow. Do you think? Tell us a couple more factoids. I mean, it's incredibly interesting to talk to you guys, because I mean, I had no idea that we probably got enough gas and fossil fuels to last 600 to 1,000 years. Because the impression you get is that it's going to run out tomorrow.
Oh, in fact, I co-authored back in a previous life. I co-authored the first peer-reviewed scientific technical paper on the Marcellus Shale of the eastern United States. During that, we looked at this. It's the largest gas field in the world. This is how big it is. We looked at the top 10 conventional gas fields in the world, and those top 10 gas fields combined didn't equal what there was in the Marcellus. That's big. That's generations and generations of natural gas that's sitting there. And there are two other reservoirs above and below. It's in the eastern Appalachian Basin, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, eastern Ohio.
Right. So carry on talking. I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought.
No, we've got, and the other thing you look at too, when they talk about oil and gas, well, if you look in the Middle East, big companies don't target anything less than 150 million barrel fields. All right. And there aren't many of those. They're hard to find, but there's a lot of smaller fields that are 80 and 100 million barrels. Once the oil price goes up, those become economic. It's going to be higher oil price to find those, but we're not going to run out. As we get scarcity, we get an increase in cost, and then other things become economic. It's going to be painful, but right now the United States is taking the lead in the world. We've now producing more oil out of the United States due to fracking and horizontal drilling than ever, and that's because Joe Biden would like to kill it. But he can't touch. In the United States, we have private property rights for below to the center of the earth if you own a property or a farm. So you have those rights. You can benefit greatly. And so Joe Biden and the administration can't kill that. They can kill it in the Gulf Coast on federal properties, which they're doing. They could kill it in Alaska where they're federal properties, which they're doing. But the vast resources we have of these new shale fields and shale oil fields are on private property, and they're going gangbusters.
And yet, what you're saying, an article you sent me before our interviews, climate protesters throw smoke bombs at golf tournament causing chaos. Where do you? There's still a lot of activism going on, and you see on Twitter people sort of sitting around, literally gluing themselves to the asphalt on German motorways. And they have to be cut away and go to hospital, I mean, there are a lot of really dedicated people opposed to the arguments that you're making.
How many people's minds do you think have been changed by being delayed by 3 hours getting home or going to the hospital? I don't think, probably none. These people, I think they've overreached. They're making fools of themselves. And they dispute what they're doing too. Is we talk a lot about the climate colonialism, about how the Western world's imposing our morals and our Western energy philosophies on India, Africa, Southeast Asia, instead of allowing these countries to grow with economic electricity. We're destining them to generational poverty unless we can get them, some 4 billion people that are living in energy poverty, that are still cooking over dry dung and wood in their homes, leading to some 4 million deaths a year. We can provide them electricity that's provided from coal, oil, or natural gas, mainly coal. So I care about the people living in energy poverty. I care about those people. Everyone should.
So what you're saying is that these people, often these young activists, very, very idealistic, they are, even on their measure, they're doing the wrong thing, because you care about the poor much more than they do by promoting or pushing for policies that would give the poor access to fossil fuels more, rather than these poverty, wealth destroying policies that the left are pushing for. Gregory, I'm afraid we're going to wind up there. Do you think, just give a very short answer, do you think Trump will have the right kind of policies? You've got 20 seconds if he gets elected.
Oh, well, I think he knows now he's got to root out the deep state. They went much deeper than he thought, and we need to make changes in interior, energy, transportation. Get rid of those career bureaucrats that are pushing this nonsense. And the Supreme Court recently made some really good decisions on that in that regard. Right.
Okay. Well, that's so do I. I mean, I include the deep state intelligence agencies, and I think they're called endless troubles in U.S. foreign policy. And you're talking about how they cause problems in energy policy, but extending your definition on the deep state. Gregory Wrightstone, a geologist, author of A Very Convenient Warming. More CO2 is good. Great to have you on.